The air was thick with smoke and ionized dust, the acrid tang of burning metal mixing with something older, something more primal, blood. The plaza of Varys Prime's garrison world was crowded with alien soldiers and officials, their segmented bodies glistening in the heat of twin suns. They had come to witness a spectacle, a ceremony of domination that the Galactic Empire had perfected over centuries, the public crucifixion of enemies meant to send a message of futility. 10 humans stood at the center of the stone expanse, their wrists bound in iron clamps, their bodies forced against angular metal crosses engineered specifically to accentuate frailty. To the onlookers, the ritual was a celebration. To the humans, it was something else entirely. The first nail was driven in with a pneumatic hiss, metal-piercing flesh, and a ripple of approval spread through the alien crowd. But the condemned man did not scream. His jaw clenched, veins rising against his neck, but his eyes, gray, cold, unflinching, met the overseer's and held them until the creature shifted its gaze uneasily. One by one, the others were bound and nailed, each act punctuated by the wet sound of steel against muscle, yet no cries came. Whispers began to ripple among the aliens. These creatures were supposed to break, to weep, to beg for mercy. Instead, they remained unnervingly calm, some even exchanging faint nods as though the moment had been rehearsed. Among them, Captain Marcus Steele pressed his back against the cold metal of his own cross and studied the faces of his comrades. He could taste blood on his tongue where he had bitten down during the nailing, but he held the silence. Steele had been a soldier long before humanity's first skirmish with the Empire, his body a ledger of scars, his mind a map of losses. In Ethan Graves, shackled 2 crosses to the left, he saw the steady calculation of a man who had once dismantled Imperial supply chains with nothing but a stolen terminal and an old code book. Ethan's face betrayed nothing, but his eyes flickered with the same intensity that had made him humanity's quiet tactician. Next to Ethan was Jacob Harlow, his lips curled into something close to a sneer. A smuggler turned fighter, Jacob had survived the underbelly of alien trade worlds by trusting no one and cutting deals with shadows. Even nailed to a cross, he radiated a kind of grim amusement, as if daring the galaxy to try harder. On the far end, Victor Kane struggled not with the pain but with thought itself. His lips moved faintly, calculations and probabilities spilling silently, as though his brilliant, frigid mind were already devising a way to turn this humiliation into leverage. And then there was Adrian Cole, the youngest among them, his jaw tight with fury. He had not yet mastered the soldier's stillness, and his breath came in ragged bursts, but he did not break. Steele caught his eye and gave him the smallest of nods. Hold. Endure. Wait. The Imperial Governor, a towering insectoid with chitin plated in ceremonial bronze, raised its clawed arms to silence the murmuring crowd. Its voice crackled through a translator, dripping contempt. These humans sought rebellion against order. Today they learned submission. Let all species see, this is the fate of defiance. Cheers erupted, guttural and shrill, but even within the cacophony, Steele could hear the steady thump of his own heartbeat. He felt no submission. He felt a tightening coil of rage, a gathering storm that was mirrored in the unyielding gazes of the men around him. As the suns dipped lower, shadows stretched long across the plaza, draping the crucified humans in a darkness that seemed to embrace rather than consume them. One of the guards jabbed Steele's side with an electrified staff, seeking a cry, but all he earned was silence. That silence grew heavier, unsettling even the hardened soldiers of the Empire. Something about these humans was wrong. They were supposed to fracture, but instead they seemed to fuse into something harder. Steele shifted his gaze skyward, as if through the haze of atmosphere he could pierce the void where Earth lay shackled beneath the Empire's grip. His lips parted just enough to whisper, low and deliberate, words that only the humans could understand. This is not our end. This is their beginning. Adrian heard it, and his breath steadied. Ethan gave the faintest nod. Jacob let out a dry chuckle that earned him a hiss from a nearby guard. Even Victor's muttering stilled, if only for a moment, as the whisper wound through their small brotherhood like a spark in dry tinder. To the crowd, it meant nothing. To the condemned, it was a vow. Hours passed. The executioners expected the humans to fade, to slump in agony as their bodies weakened, but instead they endured, eyes bright in the deepening dark. The governor grew impatient. A final order was given, and a line of soldiers raised plasma rifles to end the ordeal. Steele braced himself not for death, he had long since accepted that, but for what his death would mean. The rifles hummed, energy building, and then, with a single sharp command, they fired. The plaza lit in bursts of white-blue brilliance. Bodies jerked, crosses shuddered, and silence fell heavy when the smoke cleared. 10 forms hung limp in the shadows of twin suns. The crowd dispersed, uneasy murmurs chasing them into the alleys and barracks of Varys Prime. The governor declared the matter settled, rebellion extinguished. Yet in the silence of that plaza, in the cooling blood and scorched metal, something lingered. Not despair, but promise. From the shadows of a ruined colonnade at the plaza's edge, Marcus Steele stirred. He had not been among the executed. What the Empire believed to be 10 humans had been 9. One of the crosses had held only a corpse already emptied of life, smuggled in by allies. Steele had watched his men die, and though his body screamed for him to act, he had remained hidden, recording every detail, every sneer, every careless proclamation. When the last alien left, he stepped into the open, boots crunching on ash. He touched the base of one of the crosses, feeling the heat still radiating from it, and whispered again, this time to the dead. They think they ended you, but you've only begun us. His comm unit flickered to life, a faint crackle against the silence. A voice, coded and fractured, reached his ear. Steele. Confirm status. He pressed the device close. Confirmed. They crucified 9. I watched. They believe it over. His voice hardened, each word like iron hammered in fire. It begins now. On the other end, silence, then a single phrase. Operation Extinction. Steele's eyes swept the horizon, the alien towers rising like jagged spears against the night. He thought of Ethan's calculating gaze, Jacob's defiant grin, Victor's cold brilliance, Adrian's untempered fury. He thought of how none of them had broken, not even at the end. His hand clenched into a fist. Extinction, he confirmed. The channel went dead. Steele stood alone in the plaza, the corpses of his comrades arrayed around him like grim sentinels. He did not flinch. Instead, he lifted his head, jaw set, eyes burning with a fire the Empire could neither quantify nor crush. The crucifixion had been meant to kill hope, but it had forged something else entirely, resolve sharpened into a blade. And the galaxy would soon learn what humanity did when cornered. The void of space burned with fire. Entire starfields seemed to shudder as the first strikes of humanity's uprising tore into the Galactic Empire's unsuspecting outposts. From the shattered rim of Varys Prime to the cold orbit of Cortha Station, human ships, crude and cobbled together from stolen technology and scavenged wreckage, flared into existence like predators emerging from dark waters. They carried no banners, no anthems. They carried only the certainty of vengeance. Captain Marcus Steele stood at the heart of the command deck aboard the Iron Requiem, a stolen corvette gutted and reforged with human ingenuity. His hands rested on the edge of the tactical display, his gaze fixed on the shifting outlines of enemy vessels scrambling to respond. Around him, his men, those who had survived the early years of submission, moved with the focus of predators who had shed the chains of prey. The Empire had expected a whimpering resistance. Instead, it had awoken a war. Ethan Graves, his face half lit by the glow of the display, spoke in his calm, deliberate tone, the tone of a man who measured consequences like a jeweler weighed stones. Their formation is unraveling. Too rigid, too dependent on doctrine. They expect us to fight like cattle. They don't understand improvisation. His hand hovered, then tapped a command into the board. If we cut here, he pointed to a weak junction between 2 alien frigates, we collapse their entire flank. Marcus gave the faintest nod. Ethan's mind was a weapon sharper than any blade, and though the captain carried the burden of command, he trusted Ethan's insight as he trusted few things left in the universe. Do it. Jacob Harlow leaned back in his chair, one boot propped against a railing, his grin edged with bitterness. Empire ships, disciplined to the bone, and still they scatter like frightened merchants. Almost feel sorry for them. His words carried no sincerity. He had watched the Empire's discipline grind entire colonies into dust. Pity had long since bled out of him. Almost, Marcus murmured, but his eyes never left the display. The ship lurched as their gunners unleashed a barrage. Explosions blossomed in the dark, bright against the eternal black, fragments of alien steel tumbling like broken idols. Each detonation was a drumbeat, a rhythm to which humanity had begun to march. Yet Marcus knew these victories were not enough. Striking isolated outposts and scattered fleets might spread terror, but terror alone would not topple an empire that spanned galaxies. Operation Extinction required more than raids. It required audacity. Victor Kane's voice, cool and precise, cut through the hum of the deck. Resources are finite. Every strike we make must yield more than destruction. We must bleed them, yes, but we must also consume what they lose. Their supply lines are arteries. Cut and harvest. His gaze was detached, almost clinical, as if he were dissecting a cadaver rather than orchestrating the deaths of thousands. Some of the younger fighters avoided his eyes. Marcus did not. Victor's mind was dangerous, but in this war, danger was currency. Adrian Cole stood near the viewport, fists clenched, watching debris spin into the void. His youth clung to him like a second skin, restless and impatient, but in the weeks since the crucifixion of his comrades, his fire had cooled into steel. "We shouldn't stop at their fleets," he said, voice tight. "Every world that flew their banners while they crucified us, they should burn. Make them choke on their loyalty." The deck fell silent. Marcus turned, studying the younger man. He saw himself in that fury, raw and unshaped, a blade untempered. "There is a difference between destroying their armies and destroying their people," Marcus said. "If we become indiscriminate, we risk becoming what they are." Jacob's grin widened. "Maybe that's the point, Captain. They didn't show mercy on Earth. They didn't hesitate to crucify men as a lesson. Maybe the only language the galaxy understands is fear." Victor's expression did not change, but his words aligned more with Jacob than with Marcus. "Fear is efficient." Ethan broke the tension, his voice measured. "Fear may win battles, but will not win us loyalty from those who suffer under the Empire. We need allies, not only corpses. The question is not if we fight, but how." Marcus looked at each of them in turn, the strategist, the smuggler, the scientist, the soldier. Each represented a path, and humanity's war would be shaped by which path they chose. He felt the weight of their eyes on him, waiting, demanding decision. Leadership was not command alone. It was choosing which soul of humanity would rise from this crucible. The answer came sooner than he expected. A transmission lit across the console, a desperate signal from the hidden council on Earth. Grainy, crackling, but urgent. The Empire knows. They prepare retaliation. A fleet is mobilizing, larger than any we've faced. They mean to burn Earth as they burn Varys Prime. Marcus felt the deck tilt beneath his feet, though the ship did not move. He had always known this moment would come, but hearing it spoken aloud cleaved through him like a blade. Adrian's fists tightened. "Then we strike first." "No," Ethan countered immediately. "We cannot defend Earth directly. Not yet. If we meet their fleet head-on, we will be annihilated." Victor's eyes gleamed coldly. "Unless we break them before they arrive. Decapitate command, cripple logistics, unleash contagions into their armories. Make their fleet rot before it can launch." Jacob leaned forward, his voice low. "Or we hit where it hurts most. Not their ships, not their generals. Their throne world. They'll never expect vermin to gnaw at the heart." Silence, heavy as gravity, pressed down on the deck. Each option carried death, perhaps extinction, yet Marcus knew the crucifixion had changed them. Humanity could not bend. It could not retreat. It could only strike. "Set course," Marcus said at last, his voice steady though his veins burned with fire. "We move for their throne world." The declaration spread across the ship, through every corridor, every chamber, carried by whispers and oaths. Fear mingled with resolve, but above both was something sharper, faith in vengeance. The Empire had crucified humanity to kill its spirit. Instead, it had created a war it could never contain. The Iron Requiem joined with other human vessels rising from shadows across the galaxy. Fleets of stolen frigates, patched destroyers, refitted cargo haulers, an armada born not of empire, but of desperation and fury. They surged forward, a tide of fire-gathering speed, cutting through void like sharpened nails, tearing into the skin of gods. The throne world loomed ahead, encircled by defenses designed to repel entire species. But humanity was not an invading species. Humanity was something the Empire had not understood until it was too late, a predator that learned, adapted, and never forgot the taste of humiliation. The first volleys roared. Shields flared. Space ignited. Marcus Steele gripped the railing as the deck shuddered beneath him, his men at their stations, their faces lit by war's cold fire. Ethan's strategies unraveled the enemy line. Jacob's daring strikes tore holes where none should exist. Victor unleashed weapons that twisted biology into nightmares. Adrian charged into the heart of battle, his fury finally harnessed into precision. In that storm of destruction, Marcus saw not the end of humanity, but its ascension. Every death they inflicted, every ship they broke,